The laugh hit me before the coffee finished blooming, sharp and mean, and I knew something was wrong. Quick note, before we keep going, while you're listening, tell us which country you're watching from. My name's Grant. I was 48 then. I lived in a split level outside Green Bay, Wisconsin. It was Father's Day morning, 6:10 a.m., and I was at the stove flipping hash browns, keeping them flat and crisp the way Vanessa liked. I had her oat milk latte lined up, extra foam, cinnamon dusted just right, and Tyler's protein pancakes stacked on a warm plate. That was my job now. Had been since the plant laid me off years back. I heard the back door open, shoes scraped. A plastic bag crackled. Vanessa came in first, hair tied up, already smiling. Tyler followed, phone out, lens pointed straight at me like he was filming a prank show. He handed me a cheap plastic trophy from the pharmacy down the road. Black sticker. Gold paint already chipping. "Happy Father's Day," Vanessa said, laughing before I even read it. I turned the thing in my hands, looking for the real gift. The card. Something. The sticker said, "World's most useless man." Tyler zoomed in on my face. He was grinning like he'd just won state. I swallowed and felt my chest start buzzing, like a bad wire behind the wall. I waited. Nothing else came. "Don't be so serious, Grant," Vanessa said. "It's a joke." Tyler snorted. "This is gold." Quick note, before we keep going, while you're listening, tell us which country you're watching from. I smiled. I set the trophy on the counter, plated the food, and told myself not to ruin the morning. Vanessa bumped Tyler's shoulder and said, "Post it later, not right now." Like that was the problem. She poured more coffee and said her mother, Marlene, might join us for brunch. "If you can keep the kitchen decent." Tyler replayed the clip, my own laugh tinny and fake coming out of his phone. They ate. I cleared. I rinsed the sink. The house echoed with their laughter, bouncing off walls I painted 2 winters ago, while Vanessa was on a sales trip. I set the trophy on the windowsill above the sink and looked out at the yard I kept alive every summer. My laugh played again from Tyler's phone. It didn't sound like me. I dried my hands and walked to the spare room where I kept the bills. I opened my laptop and typed one-way flights. I didn't think about it. I picked Albuquerque because I'd never been and nobody there knew me. The ticket was 12 days out. I bought it, closed the lid, went back downstairs, and swept up the crumbs like nothing happened. Before all this, I was a maintenance supervisor at a feeder plant off Highway 41. Union guy, clock puncher. I knew machines the way some people know prayers. Bearings, belts, motors that scream before they died. I could hear it coming and stop it. That used to mean something. Then the plant closed, clean and fast, like a door slammed by someone with authority. I took the severance and stayed home for a while Vanessa's tech sales job took off. That was the story we told people. A while turned into years without anyone announcing it. I slid into the work that needed doing and didn't ask for applause. Groceries every Tuesday, same route, same coupons folded in my wallet, oil changes tracked on the fridge calendar, Tyler's orthodontist at 9:30 on a Thursday, insurance card already out before the receptionist asked. I ran the house like a system that couldn't fail because nobody would notice if it did, only that things stopped working. I built the backyard shed myself, dug the footings, mixed the concrete, poured the slab one August when the heat sat on my shoulders like a sack of feed. I nearly passed out twice. The neighbor, Dave, lent me a trowel and a hose and said, "You sure you don't want help?" I told him I had it. When it was done, square and solid, nobody in my family said a word. Dave nodded once and went back to his yard. Vanessa's family never liked that I wasn't chasing a bigger paycheck. Her mother, Marlene, called me House Grant, like it was a stage name she'd coined. She said it's sweet, which made it worse. At a Labor Day cookout 2 summers back, her sister Kendra told a long story about men who go soft at home, how they lose their edge when someone else brings in the money. Everyone laughed. Vanessa laughed hardest, head thrown back, hand on her chest. I stood at the grill and flipped burgers until my wrist hurt. Father's Days came and went cheap. One year they forgot entirely. I fired up the grill anyway and told myself it didn't matter. Another year, I got a $10 gas station gift card that didn't work at the pump. I walked inside, paid cash, and used the card on beef jerky. I still thanked them. I told myself, they're young, she's stressed, it'll even out. I said it like a promise. It never did. Tyler stopped calling me dad in public around 14. At games, if someone asked, he'd point and say, "That's Grant. He, helps out." Like I was a volunteer who showed up early. When I asked him later if something was wrong, he rolled his eyes and said I was making it weird. I let it go. Letting it go was my main skill by then. Vanessa's work parties were the worst. Loud bars, shiny shoes, name tags. I'd stand there holding a drink I didn't want while she worked the room. "This is my husband," she'd say with a wave, like she was hanging a coat. When people complimented the house, she smiled and said she had an eye for design. I built the bookshelves they leaned on. I ran the wiring behind the walls. I tiled the backsplash one square at a time. After watching 3 videos and making 2 mistakes, I fixed myself. When I finally asked for a little recognition, not a parade, just respect, Vanessa told me I was sensitive. Said real men don't need thank yous. Told me to man up and let it roll off. I did. I rolled it off so much, there was nothing left to stand on. I went flat. The Father's Day trophy didn't change anything. It just printed the truth in big letters and handed it to me in plastic. In that house, I wasn't a husband or a father. I was labor with a pulse. I stood there that afternoon, wiped down the counters again, and moved the trophy a few inches so it faced the room instead of the window. I didn't argue with the truth once it was facing the room. I started with money. The next morning, I drove across town to a credit union, tucked behind a tire shop and a frozen yogurt place. No glass tower, no music. Just a counter and a woman with a name tag that said Rosa. I opened a checking account under my name only. She asked if I wanted a debit card mailed. I said I'd pick it up later. My hands didn't shake, which surprised me. Over the next 10 days, I moved money like I was skimming stones. Small, quiet amounts. $35 on a Monday, $52 on Wednesday, $47 on Friday. $63 the next Monday, $58 after that. Grocery-sized numbers. Nothing that screamed, nothing that pinged. I kept the receipts folded inside a hardware store flyer in my glove box. At night, after dishes, I pulled documents from the filing cabinet one thin stack at a time. 12 years of tax returns, title records, the mortgage from year 8. The HELOC. Vanessa opened for a kitchen update she called My Project. Even though she never picked up a drill, I fed pages into the scanner slow so it wouldn't jam. The machine hummed like it was alive. I named the files plain and boring. Dates, labels, proof. I took photos of the work I'd done. Built-ins I measured twice and cut once. Close-ups of joints that lined up clean. Receipts with dates printed clear. The garage workbench I made from reclaimed oak. Plain, smooth, finished by hand. I laid the tape measure across it and snapped the picture so scale was obvious. I wasn't bragging, I was counting. I found a family law attorney with solid reviews and a face that didn't smile too much. Denise Calder, early 50s, no nonsense in the bio. I emailed her from the old laptop, kept it short, told her I'd been the primary homemaker since the plant shut down. She wrote back the same day and said, "That labor counts. Don't let anyone tell you it doesn't." I stared at that line longer than I should have. We talked on the phone 2 nights later. Denise explained community property in our state, half the marital assets, possibly temporary support because of the income gap. I said I didn't expect a dime. Men don't. She cut me off. "Expect what the law assigns," she said, "not what your pride demands." I wrote it down like instructions. Vanessa's group chat pinged across the kitchen most nights. Kendra, her friend Talia, sometimes her boss, Martin. Phones light up. People forget walls are thin. I caught my name once in a bubble and didn't move closer. "He's basically our live-in custodian." A laughing reaction followed. Nobody asked how the house stayed standing. I started packing without packing. 1 shirt from every pair so nothing looked thin. A second pair of jeans that wouldn't be missed. Socks with no logos. I slid tools I truly owned into a small contractor bag and left the rest where they were. Tyler sat on the couch watching reels, sound on. Vanessa paced the kitchen with a headset on, arguing about quarterly numbers. No one looked my way. No one saw me inventory my life. I bought a used phone at a mall kiosk with cash and a prepaid plan. The kid tried to upsell me. I said no. I memorized the number in the parking lot and turned it off. The old laptop got wiped clean and loaded with only what I needed. I kept it boring on purpose. I copied everything to a thumb drive and wrapped it in a rag, then hid it behind the breaker panel in the basement. Photos of my work, receipts, documents, proof I existed in lumber and screws. When I was done, I slid the panel closed, stood up, and turned off the basement light. I flipped pancakes on Sunday like always. Protein for Tyler, blueberry for Vanessa, stack, syrup, knife on the right. Laundry went in Thursday morning, whites first. I knew which dryer cycle didn't shrink Vanessa's blouses. I folded her work tops smooth and left them stacked on the cedar chest in the bedroom. She never said thanks, didn't need to. I wasn't doing it for a trophy anymore. That week I sat through Tyler's JV game, bleachers cold, wind biting through my jacket. He barely played, then blamed the coach for favoring dumbasses. Said the guy was political, like he was running for office. I still cheered when his name got called, still clapped when the other kids scored, still drove him home with the heater blasting, and a silence he didn't bother to fill. Tuesday night, Vanessa had a client dinner at some steakhouse downtown. She walked into the kitchen holding a blouse and slacks, said, "Can you?" I ironed the blouse, steamed the pants, hung them up on the bathroom door. She looked me over and said, "You're good at the support stuff," like it was a badge I should pin on my chest. It hit like a shovel. At the dinner table later that week, some event at her boss's house, I was introduced as the house hero. Everybody chuckled. One guy leaned in and asked, "Do you wear an apron too?" I told him yeah, floral print with ruffles. They ate it up. Marlene dropped by Friday morning, sunglasses still on, like she was important. She pointed at the trophy still sitting on the windowsill and grinned. Finally, a little honesty in this house. I told her I was fixing the patio light. She glanced out at the yard. "You're handy," she said, like she was tossing me a bone. "I'll give you that." Then she popped a piece of gum and walked back to her car like she had other insults to hand out elsewhere. That night, after everyone went to bed, I opened the desk drawer in the corner of the dining room and pulled out Vanessa's bonus statements, yearly spikes, side deals, a vacation payout from last March she never mentioned. Denise said documentation mattered. I documented. I scanned, saved, time-stamped. I slid everything back where it was. Perfect. Next morning, Tyler posted a story. Me carrying in 3 grocery bags, shoulders hunched, bags digging into my fingers. The caption said, "Grant being Grant," with a laughing emoji. I screenshotted it, didn't comment, didn't ask. It was small, daily, and said everything. Sunday came again. They left for a matinee downtown, some movie about astronauts or love, maybe both. I stayed back and took one last walk through the house. My work was everywhere. Banister sanded and restained after I screwed up the first coat. Baseboards I replaced inch by inch after the flood in the laundry room. Kitchen tile I laid over a 3-day weekend while Vanessa was in Miami. Bookshelves with hidden brackets, notched just right. Light fixtures I wired. Doors I planed so they'd shut smooth. I touched everything once. Then I swept the entryway, rinsed out the mop bucket, and wiped the sink till it was dry. I left the place cleaner than I found it. That's what I do. I locked the door behind me, stepped off the porch, and didn't look back. Landed in Albuquerque late Wednesday. Plane wheels hit tarmac, cabin lights buzzed, and just like that, I was somewhere new. The air felt dry in my lungs, the kind that made you breathe slower. Sky looked wider, almost too big to believe. The casita was behind a sun-faded stucco house near San Mateo, tucked between a tire shop and a corner church with chipped paint. Ruben, the landlord, met me out front, mid-60s, looked like he'd built half the block himself. "It's furnished enough," he said, handing me the key. He wasn't wrong. Inside was a cot with a stiff quilt, a wobbly table, 2 metal chairs, and a shelf that leaned slightly left. A window unit ticked when it kicked on. Didn't matter. It was mine. I walked to a nearby grocery store and bought only what I liked. Sharp cheddar, green chilies, crusty bread, no oat milk, no protein powder. I made a sandwich in the tiny kitchen and ate it standing up because there wasn't a reason to sit. That night, I slept like I'd poured concrete all day. Deep, still sleep that didn't ask questions. Next morning, I walked. No destination, just sidewalks and sun. Found the river by accident, cottonwoods along the path, early light cutting through them. I dropped and did push-ups on the edge of the trail till my arms burned clean. It was the kind of pain that reminded me I was still here. I shaved down the beard, left gray stubble, didn't flinch at my face in the mirror. 3 emails waited from Denise. She was ready to file. I typed back, "Do it." She replied 5 minutes later, said Kevin, Vanessa, would be served at her office during business hours. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. That week, I found a bulletin board at a local hardware store, half flyers, half handwritten scraps. One card said, "Need ceiling fan installed, $85. I called, guy answered, asked how soon. I said I was 20 minutes away, swapped out the old fan, fixed the plate, cleaned up my mess. He paid cash and handed me a bottle of water. Didn't even haggle. 2 days later, it was a sticking door for $40. After that, a garbage disposal for $120. People paid fair and didn't hover. Word started to move, slow and steady. A week in, I walked into a community center off Gibson and asked if they needed help. Lady at the desk pointed me to the back office. Director's name was Arlene, mid-40s, glasses, no time for small talk. "You got experience?" I pulled up photos, built-ins, bench, tile, everything dated. She flipped through them. "We need someone who cares." "I do," I said. That was enough. She brought me on for 26 hours a week. Not big money, but it came on time and clean. I showed up early and left late. No one rolled their eyes. At night, I went to the public library downtown. Sat in a free workshop on how to start a business. Permits, invoicing, taxes. I took notes in a notebook I found on the free shelf out front. Didn't miss a session. By week 2, I needed wheels. I met a guy named Leon off Central who was selling a 2007 Ranger, 152 on the odometer. Hood rattled like coins in a can, but the engine ran strong. I handed him $3,800 cash. He gave me the title and a nod. When I drove it back to the casita, windows down, left hand on the wheel, I didn't feel like I was escaping anymore. I felt like I'd arrived. I was 12 days in when the prepaid phone buzzed on the table. I still had my old social account open in a browser I never used. Habit, I guess. I tapped it once, and there it was at the top of the feed. A beach photo from last fall. Me and Tyler, shoulder to shoulder, both of us squinting into the sun, the ocean blown out behind us. Vanessa had cropped it tight so you couldn't see the empty beer cans or the wind-whipped towels. Her caption read, "Please, if anyone sees Grant, tell him we just want him home." The comments came fast and thick. Co-workers, neighbors. Her church friend who never liked me but loved a good prayer chain. Praying, heartbroken, he must be struggling. One woman wrote, "Men don't ask for help." Like I'd wandered off into the woods confused. Marlene chimed in an hour later. He was always fragile. I set the phone down and finished my coffee. The bitterness didn't bother me anymore. That same morning, Denise filed the petition. Community property split. Temporary support request. Documentation of unpaid labor attached and indexed. She timed it clean. Process server walking into Vanessa's team meeting mid-morning. No ambush, just facts delivered with witnesses. That night, I cleared the casita table and set the trophy in the center. Same cheap plastic, same black sticker, same gold paint. I took one photo. No filters. Just the words filling the frame. World's most useless man. My caption was short. On Father's Day, my wife and her son handed me this and filmed my face. I made breakfast and cleaned up. That night, I bought a one-way ticket. I went somewhere I'm not useless. I didn't tag anyone, didn't explain further. I posted it and set the phone face down like I was done with it. It moved slow at first, not fireworks, a brush fire. Men I worked with at the plant reached out one by one. Saw it. Not right. Happened to my brother. A guy I hadn't spoken to in years wrote, "Proud of you for leaving." A woman from Vanessa's team messaged me late. Not a friend, barely an acquaintance. "I've heard how she talks about you," she wrote. "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. I read it twice and let it sit. The next day, Vanessa pushed back with a long paragraph about context and harmless humor, and how people didn't know the whole story. She said the internet loved a villain. She said she was protecting her family. It sounded practiced. People weren't buying it. One comment stuck at the top. "You called him useless and filmed it." Another followed. "If the joke needs a defense, it wasn't a joke." By afternoon, Denise emailed me a photo from a building lobby. Vanessa stood there holding an envelope, shoulders tight, eyes flat, like the room had gone quiet all at once. Denise didn't add commentary. She didn't need to. Vanessa's attorney sent a blustery response before dinner. Lots of words. Abandonment showed up 3 times. Irreparable harm. Unilateral decision. Denise replied with dates, tax returns, the trophy photo, and Tyler's posts. She attached screenshots and labeled them clean. She CC'd "for the record" like she was setting a nail with one swing. I went to the park after dark and did push-ups under a light that flickered. My arms shook, then steadied. When I got back, there were more messages waiting. Some angry, most quiet. A few said thank you, like I'd done something for them by accident. I didn't answer any of it. I washed my hands, put the trophy back on the shelf, and turned the phone off. Then I opened the window, let the dry night air in, and went to sleep. Court smelled like old paper and cold coffee. First hearing was a Tuesday in late September. Fluorescent lights flickered just enough to annoy, but not enough to fix. The carpet was worn flat in the paths everyone walked. Same seats, different stories. A judge with tired eyes and a face that said he'd already seen the worst version of whatever we were about to present. Vanessa sat at the opposite table, next to a silver-haired attorney in a tailored suit. She looked bored. Not nervous, not angry, just like she'd rather be boarding a flight with an overpriced coffee in her hand and noise-canceling headphones on. Like this was some meeting she'd double-booked. Her lawyer stood first, voice smooth, practiced, a little smug. "Your Honor, my client is the sole earner in this household. She supported her husband while he voluntarily stepped away from the workforce for years. He chose to stay home, chose to, quote, focus on domestic tasks." He leaned into the word chose like I'd picked it off a menu. He said my skill set wasn't marketable, that my recent move was a stunt to gain sympathy online. He said abandonment 3 separate times, evenly spaced, like it was a chorus. He didn't mention the trophy. Denise stood when he finished, calm, surgical. She opened a folder and didn't look at Vanessa, just the judge. "Plant closure in 2019, she said. Client received severance, agreed with spouse that he'd manage the household while she grew her career. 4 months turned into 4 years. My client took over all domestic labor, cooking, cleaning, home repair, child transport, scheduling. She laid out timelines like bricks in a row. Dates, pay stubs, tax forms, the backyard shed, the orthodontist schedule. She said Vanessa's bonuses tracked with the stability at home, stability he created. Then she tapped the screen on the projector, and up came photos. Built-ins, backsplash, the banister, receipts dated, organized. Then the last slide, the trophy sitting on the windowsill, angled toward the sink. Denise didn't pause. She read 2 emails aloud. One was Vanessa to her sister Kendra. "He's dead weight, but at least the house stays clean." The other was from a group thread with her boss and Talia. "Stay-at-home husbands are adorable in theory. In practice, they're like rescue dogs, high maintenance and always underfoot." Denise let the silence sit. She didn't raise her voice. She let the words do the bruising. The judge leaned back and asked about Tyler. "He's 16 now, closer to man than boy." "I want him to be okay," I said. "And I want him to know I'm here when he's ready to talk. That's it. No drama." He nodded once like that's all he needed. Then he ruled. Temporary support. $2,400 a month to me, starting immediately, pending final settlement. He said, community property means community. He said, unpaid labor counts. He said, the Father's Day incident speaks to climate. I didn't grin. I didn't fist pump. I nodded. That was enough. Pride's a funny thing. I starved myself on it for years, thinking if I didn't ask for anything, I couldn't be disappointed. Turns out, you can survive on justice too. When it shows up on paper with a seal and a signature, it feeds something deeper. Outside the courtroom, Denise closed her file and handed me a copy. Take the win, she said. Use it to rebuild. Don't use it to gloat, I said. I'll do both privately and neither in public. She looked at me sideways, almost smiled. We stood there for a second in the dry fall air, the wind tugging at her blazer and my sleeves. Then she nodded once and walked back toward her car. The email came in at 11:12 p.m., Thursday night. Subject line, can we talk? 3 lines, no hey, no love, no dad. Just legal-sounding stiffness like it had been drafted with help. Could have come from Vanessa's lawyer, for all I knew. I'd like to talk in person if possible. I have questions. Let me know. I stared at it for a while. Didn't answer until morning. I wrote back one sentence. Here's my address. Doors open when you're ready to be honest. 2 Saturdays later, he stepped off a Greyhound at the corner of Central and Yale, backpack slung over one shoulder, wrinkled windbreakers zipped to the neck. He looked taller, but not bigger. Eyes older, though. The kind of tired you don't get from sports or school. I took him to a burger place near the university where the booths were tall and the music stayed low. No TVs, no crowd. I figured if he had anything to say, he wouldn't want an audience. We started with easy stuff. He talked about school, how JV sucked, how he should be starting, but the coach plays favorites. I nodded and listened. I told him about the community center, how I was fixing drywall and ceiling fans, and how some kids think I know everything, because I can use a level. We circled like boxers in round 1, light jabs, no hits. I picked up a fry, broke it in half, and said, "You want to talk about the trophy?" He blinked, looked down at the table. "She said you think it was funny," he said. "You laughed." I set the fry down. "I've been laughing at things that hurt me for years," I said. "That's not the same as funny." He didn't argue, just nodded once, small. "Did you hate living with us?" he asked. "No," I said. "I hated being treated like I didn't matter. That's different." I looked him straight in the eye. "I loved you the whole time. Both things can be true." He didn't speak right away, just stared at a ketchup bottle like maybe it had answers I didn't. We talked about the video. He admitted he planned to post it, said it was supposed to be a trend, said he didn't because I left and it felt weird. "Weird isn't the bar," I said. "Respect is." That hit. He didn't deny it, just tapped the edge of his glass with a fingernail, thinking hard. After we finished eating, he asked if he could visit again sometime. I said yes, reached into my pocket, pulled out the spare key to the casita, and slid it across the table. He picked it up like it weighed 100 pounds. "I don't know what to say," he muttered. "You don't have to say anything. Just treat it like it matters." On the walk back to the bus stop, he kept glancing over like he wanted to ask something. Finally, just before we got there, he said, "She's mad. She says you're taking everything." I stopped and looked at him. "I'm taking what the law says is mine," I said. "The judge is splitting it." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't know what to believe anymore." "Then don't listen to speeches," I said. "Watch how people act when nobody's clapping." That shut him up for the rest of the walk. When the bus pulled up, he hugged me fast, barely arms, more like contact, and got on. No drama. 6 months later, I was back under those same buzzing lights, staring at that same tired clock over the bench. Final settlement was read into record. Half the equity from the house, half of the brokerage account. A QDRO that split a chunk of Vanessa's retirement down the middle. No fireworks, no yelling. Just signatures, initials, and the sound of paper sliding across a wood table. The judge looked up once, said irretrievably broken, like he was calling time of death. Funny way to describe something that finally made sense. Vanessa glared at me like I'd stolen it all in the middle of the night. But I hadn't. I'd traded years of unpaid labor and silence for the one thing no one gave me freely: recognition. The receipt just came with a court stamp. Her attorney muttered something about appeals. Denise leaned over and said quietly, "This is clean. It'll stand." I drove back to the casita in the Ranger, still rattling like a loose toolbox. Stopped at a thrift store on the way and bought a dented metal sign that said "Shop" for $3. Hung it on the gate with 2 screws and stood back a second. Next morning, I printed cards. Lawson Repairs. Nothing fancy. My number, my hours. That was it. My hands knew the work. I slept good that night, and the one after that. At the community center, I started a Saturday class called Fix Stuff 101. Teens, a couple single moms, anyone who never learned how to hold a drill. First day, 11 kids showed up. 2 moms too. We fixed a wobbly chair and wired a busted lamp. A quiet kid named Felix said, "Nobody ever showed me this." I told him, "Nobody showed me half of life either. We're catching up together." I wrote a short piece that night, posted it to my page, titled it, "World's Most Useless Man, Notes from the Workshop." It was about how houses break slowly, how men do too, and how both can be fixed if you stop pretending they are not broken. People shared it. A local paper emailed for an interview. I told them I was busy on Saturdays. They ran it anyway. Tyler started visiting twice a month. We welded a bracket for a neighbor's gate one afternoon, and he asked real questions. Not the kind that play well in a group chat. Real ones. He said, "I don't want to be the kind of man who needs someone small to feel big." I said, "Good. Keep that sentence. Check it daily, like oil." One of Vanessa's big clients pulled a contract after the process server's story circled around. That wasn't my win, but I won't lie, it felt like justice landing in the right lap. Her mother stopped calling me House Grant after my workshop photos started making the rounds. One day she commented, "Looks like he found his thing." I didn't reply. I've got a thing to run. The trophy sits on a shelf in my shop where everyone can see it. When folks ask, I tell the short version. I don't make them hate her. I don't try to make them love me. I just tell them what happened, then show them how to square a corner and set a hinge. I used to think revenge was about making someone pay. Turns out, it can be about making yourself whole in a way they can't touch. I kept my steady hands, my good work, my name, and my kids' respect. They can keep the laughter they filmed. I've got the life I built while they were busy filming it.